Buried in a cliff on the shores of Chesapeake Bay, paleontologists search for clues to the biggest and baddest shark that ever lived.
Oh my goodness.
Megalodon.
Megalodon, in my mind, is kind of on par with T-Rex.
The largest predatory shark of all time. 20 meters long. With a bite force 10 times more powerful than a great white shark, Megalodon was the ultimate ocean predator. The stuff of nightmares.
Stirs in us this sort of primordial fear we wouldn't have a chance against if we were in its environment.
How did a shark grow so big? What did this monster really look like? And why did it vanish from the oceans almost without trace?
You'd think it would be the king of the ocean. So why did it disappear?
Now scientists hunt for answers. Scouring the globe for massive fossils.
Looks like we have a sizable tooth here.
And using innovative technology to piece together a monster-sized puzzle.
By using all these different components, we were able to create the best available model to date.
To solve the mystery of the Megalodon, we'll resurrect the greatest shark that ever lived. Diving inside its jaws, we will reveal the terrifying reality of this prehistoric killing machine. The Calvert Cliffs in the eastern United States are a fossil hunter's paradise. They lie in the state of Maryland, on the rugged coastline of Chesapeake Bay. Here the water is clear and deep, and the shore is dotted with marine fossils.
The waves have calmed down a little bit over here, so a little bit easier collecting.
Paleontologist Dr. Stephen Godfrey and Dr. Victor Perez from the Calvert Marine Museum are experts on prehistoric sharks.
Stingray tooth.
Yeah, I found a little chunk like that.
For them, these imposing cliffs offer a remarkable portal into the past.
We have 25 miles of cliffs, and those cliffs encapsulate time from about 20 million years ago to about 8 million years ago.
By studying the diversity of fossils in here, we can tell a lot about the ecosystem at that time, you know, who was living here and who was preying on what.
The Calvert Cliffs have produced many incredible finds. But today, Stephen and Victor are on the hunt for the remains of one of the greatest sharks that ever lived.
Waves have definitely picked up.
The layers of sediment that form the Calvert Cliffs today were once part of the seabed of an ancient shallow bay. Among the creatures inhabiting these waters was one of the biggest and baddest fish to ever swim our oceans. A monstrous shark of almost mythical proportions, Megalodon. All that is left of this lost beast are rare fossils, including its enormous and terrifying teeth. What was this gigantic predator? And why is it no longer swimming here today? Scientists know surprisingly little about the mighty Megalodon. The sea is constantly washing away the cliffs here, revealing a variety of marine fossils. Rich hunting grounds for paleontologists like Stephen and Victor.
Here's a piece of baleen whale lower jaw.
But prehistoric sharks are much harder to track down. Sharks are mostly made of soft tissue, which decays quickly. Their teeth are almost all that survive after millions of years.
Looks like this is a small tooth from a gray shark.
But it's a much bigger tooth that they're hoping to find.
Looks like we have a sizable tooth here, probably from Megalodon.
Oh my goodness.
It's definitely been in the water for a little while because we can see the enamel's peeled off and it's slightly discolored, but definitely a cool find for the day.
Amazing.
Scientists think that Megalodon might have had over 200 megateeth in its jaws. Its teeth were not rooted to the jawbone, but could move through the soft tissue of the gums. Sliding like a conveyor belt, the back teeth constantly grew forward, ejecting the front row from the shark's mouth. With an endless supply, Megalodon shed tens of thousands of teeth in its lifetime. Sinking to the ocean floor, they were preserved in layers of sand and became fossilized.
That's proof that they were living in this shallow ocean that flooded over this area. And just like modern sharks, they were shedding teeth, and those teeth then were sinking to the bottom.
Megalodon's fossilized teeth are vital pieces of evidence for investigators trying to solve the mysteries that surround this prehistoric fish. Their size is enormous.
Here is a modern tooth from a great white shark. Megalodon is about 4 times the size in terms of linear dimensions than the great white shark. So we all know that great white sharks are fearsome sharks. So I don't know what term we would use to describe Megalodon.
Megalodon's huge teeth reveal that it was a monster-sized shark. It was even named after these mega-sized teeth.
Megalodon means large or giant tooth, and so this animal was aptly named.
But just how big could Megalodon get? Here at the Calvert Marine Museum, Victor and his colleagues have reconstructed an entire Megalodon.
What we used is replicas of the most complete set of Megalodon teeth ever found. The original teeth were found in a phosphate mine in Florida, in what's called the Bone Valley region. Since this was an associated set of teeth, we can be really confident about how the teeth should be arranged in the jaw.
By comparing the teeth arrangement with that found in some modern sharks, scientists estimate that Megalodon's jaw could be nearly 2 meters wide, big enough to swallow a great white shark whole. The teeth in an adult Megalodon's jaw vary in size depending on their position in its mouth. The teeth at the front of its jaw are the largest of any shark that has ever lived. Victor uses his tooth fossil evidence, along with other finds from around the world, to come up with a new calculation to estimate the length of Megalodon.
This tooth is really special to me. This was one that I actually found myself, and this is the largest Megalodon tooth I've ever found along the Calvert Cliffs.
Given that Megalodon's teeth are the largest shark teeth ever found, just how big could this shark have been?
Last year, I published a paper where, rather than using the height of the tooth, we used the width of the tooth. Comparing the width of the set of teeth from the fossil to our modern great white shark, we can come up with an estimate. So for this particular individual, the estimate was actually about 52 feet in length, around 16 meters in length. So a pretty large shark, but not the largest Megalodon ever found. Just based off the size of the teeth, we know that it was the largest shark to ever live, but there are still many unanswered questions about Megalodon.
Megalodon was bigger than any shark in history. But what did this megafish actually look like? Unlike most vertebrates, a shark's skeleton isn't made of bone. The flesh and skin of a shark are wrapped around soft tissue called cartilage, which, unlike bone, disintegrates when a shark dies. This makes it extremely difficult to understand what a prehistoric shark looked like. So scientists must use the evidence they have and turn to modern-day species for clues. Megalodon was an evolutionary dead end, with no descendants nor surviving ancestors for comparison. Its main living relatives are from the order of the mackerel sharks, like the thresher shark, the megamouth, the mako, and the great white. Which mackerel shark did Megalodon most likely resemble? In New York, comparative anatomist and marine biologist Joy Reidenberg works at the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai. She thinks we can get an idea of what Megalodon looked like by comparing its fossilized teeth with those of its modern relatives.
This is a tooth of a great white shark, but it's very similar to the tooth of Megalodon. They're both triangular. They both have serrations. They're both very wide teeth. These teeth are similar because these two sharks did the same thing. They both preyed on the same kind of prey and in the same way.
Although separated by millions of years, the two sharks came up with the exact same adaptation. They likely occupied the same or very similar ecological niche. This allows scientists to use the great white shark as a living counterpart for Megalodon. Most Megalodon models, like this one at the Calvert Marine Museum, are based on the fearsome great white.
You can see the massive jaws here, which are basically an enlarged version of what we see in the living great white shark.
They've even supersized the cup-like cartilage structures that hold the shark's eyes.
As we move away from the skull, we have what looks like a crazy mess, but this is actually the gill rakers of the shark. Behind that, you can see the vertebral column extending all the way down to the end of the tail. Our model is about 37.5 feet long, so much larger than today's great white shark, which maximum recorded size is between about 21 and 23 feet in length.
This reconstruction is reliant on comparative anatomy and only one piece of solid evidence: Megalodon tooth fossils.
Since we do not have any fossilized skeletons of Megalodon that have ever been found, at least no complete ones, there is a lot of speculation about what these body proportions would have looked like.
A pioneering new research project could throw new light onto this mystery and help investigators reconstruct this long-lost monster more accurately.
I have always been fascinated about sharks because they play such important roles in marine ecosystems.
Paleobiologist Catalina Pimiento from Swansea University in the United Kingdom is part of an international team of scientists working to solve the mystery of what Megalodon really looked like. They're using innovative scanning technology to re-examine rare sections of a fossilized Megalodon spine.
I'm holding here a 3D printed scan of a Megalodon vertebral centrum, and it's part of a column that was found in Belgium from around 50 million years ago, and represents one of two vertebral columns that have been found for this extinct shark.
The vertebrae come from a very rare, almost complete spinal column. The original fossil was found in Belgium in the 1860s and lay in a drawer of a museum in Brussels until the 1990s. It was only recently that scientists realized the significance of the fossils.
Vertebral columns are very rare. So even though this has been studied before to an extent, today we have this new technology.
Catalina and her team are able to rebuild the spine of this prehistoric shark in a computer. By using pioneering 3D scans of each individual vertebra, they then combine this reconstructed spine with data from a complete set of Megalodon teeth. Finally, by using a modern-day great white shark as a living counterpart, the team have been able to build a scaled digital replica of Megalodon. They believe this is the most accurate representation to date of what the extinct monster shark would have looked like. Based on Catalina's data, Megalodon had a head the size of a van, a spine longer than a school bus, Megalodon is a predator of truly biblical proportions that could eat a great white shark for breakfast. How and why did this lost beast get so big? Dr. Victor Perez believes that juvenile tooth fossils found at the Calvert Cliffs might help explain why Megalodon grew into a monster.
In my right hand, we have our juvenile tooth, and in my left hand, we have an adult Megalodon tooth, both of which were found here locally along the Calvert Cliffs. Particularly on the north end of the cliffs, we do tend to find smaller Megalodon teeth on average. So some people have theorized that this area could have been a nursery for Megalodon.
Shark nurseries are often found in shallow coastal fringes, much like the ancient sea that once covered Chesapeake Bay. They are a marine refuge where baby and juvenile sharks live until adulthood. This can be over 20 years in some species.
There's a few different reasons why a shark would use a nursery habitat. It limits competition between adults and young individuals. Shallow lagoonal environments are more difficult for a large predator to get access to, and there's often an abundance of fish and other prey items that are ideal for these young developing sharks.
Nurseries are especially important for sharks that breed slowly and have few young, which experts think was the case for Megalodon. It is likely that Megalodon, after a lengthy pregnancy, gave birth to just 1 or 2 babies, which it left to fend for themselves. In the open water, they were easy prey for larger predators and may not have lasted very long. But sticking together in nurseries in shallow bays could give them shelter and plenty of food to fuel their growth. These waters would give baby Megalodon a greater chance of surviving and growing into a monstrous adult, and ultimately help the species to become the oceanic top gun for millions of years. Hints of that evolutionary advantage are captured in rare Megalodon fossils.
The biggest study that was done that had something to say about juvenile Megalodon wasn't looking at teeth, but rather looking at their vertebra.
Hidden in rare vertebrae fossil finds are some of the most tantalizing clues to how Megalodon got so big. The inside of a shark's vertebrae has growth rings, similar to those in a tree. A scientist from DePaul University in Chicago used these rings to figure out the size of a newborn Megalodon pup.
So what this researcher did, he looked at the very center of these Megalodon vertebrae, which would be the growth when it was first born. And he estimated the size of the shark from just that inner core of the vertebra. And they estimated that a newborn Megalodon would be about 2 meters in length, so between 6 and 7 feet in length.
That's the size of a large adult human. Megalodon's monster size at birth, combined with a high survival rate provided by nurseries, would have given the megapredator a major advantage over other fish from the very start of its life. Big was baked in at birth, but once young Megalodons reached adulthood and moved into the open ocean, how did they become the largest predatory shark that ever lived? Catalina Pimiento's 3D model could hold the answers. It reveals more than just what Megalodon looked like. Researchers are able to use the data to estimate Megalodon's body mass.
Mass is a very important trait because it allows us to infer other ecological properties, such as prey intake, swimming speed, and metabolic demands.
Mass is an indicator of lifestyle. Using their data, the team calculates that this individual had an average cruising speed of 1.4 meters per second. That's faster than any living shark species. Megalodon would have expended vast amounts of energy to swim at such rapid speeds. It would require a sophisticated system to make such energy supplies available. Cold-blooded animals like reptiles and fish rely on their surroundings to heat their bodies, which means they prefer warmer climates. Warm-blooded animals maintain a constant body temperature and can more easily access colder regions. Megalodon was basically cold-blooded, but could use heat from its muscles to shield strategic organs like its brain and eyes from the cold.
Different lines of evidence have suggested that the megalodon was capable of regulating the temperature of its most important organs.
Scientists named this crucial skill mesothermy.
Mesothermy would have allowed the megalodon to explore cold waters and therefore find food not only in warm waters but also in cold habitats as well.
This remarkable adaptation made Megalodon a transoceanic predator, a killer who could feed on whatever and wherever it chose, allowing it to grow bigger and bigger. But this was not the only advantage of being able to regulate body temperature.
By being mesothermic, Megalodon would have been able to hunt more efficiently because it would have been able to have faster burst speeds, which is the kind of speed you need to hunt or to catch a prey. And because of that, they would have been able to catch faster prey.
Scientists have estimated that Megalodon was capable of burst speeds of around 23 miles per hour, as fast as a modern-day seal, making it a highly efficient killer that could strike with terrifying speed. And for Megalodon, that physiological advantage opened up opportunities, catapulting it towards gigantism.
Our previous research has suggested that mesothermy was a key trait that allowed the evolution of giantism in sharks.
Megalodon was an eating machine, without limits. But why haven't other predatory mesothermic shark species, like the great white, evolved to be as large as Megalodon? Could Megalodon's diet have contributed to its monster size? Megalodon's incredible physiology made it a relentless predator. But can the fossil evidence go even further? Can it reveal what Megalodon ate, and if its diet helped to make it the king of the ocean? Dr. Stephen Godfrey from the Calvert Marine Museum thinks a rare sample from his fossil collection could hold a clue. Close inspection of the fossil reveals crucial evidence on its surface.
We know from its size and shape that this is a fossilized dolphin vertebra, and we can tell that it's from just about the very end of the tail. It's the vertebrae that are just in front of the fluke that propels the dolphin through the water.
What Stephen has identified are a series of gouge marks on either side of the fossil that wouldn't normally be there.
The only way that you can get gouge marks like that on both sides, angling the same way, is if this vertebra, at some point in the life of this dolphin, became wedged between two adjacent megalodon teeth. So that means that a megalodon actually bit down on the end of the tail of this dolphin.
The evidence is clear. Megalodon was hunting dolphins. But that's not all the fossil can reveal.
But it didn't just bite once. Each one of these gouges represents a separate opening of the jaw and a forceful closure with the serrated cutting edge of the tooth gouging its way into the vertebra each time. So it's as though the megalodon is like saying to this dolphin, "You are never gonna get away from me alive."
This extraordinary find has revealed not only what Megalodon was hunting, but also how it dispatched its victims.
This is very suggestive of kind of an aggressive like attack on the tail. And in a way that's not surprising because modern great white sharks will also attack dolphins this way.
Dolphins are large prey, so by biting down on its tail, the shark immobilizes its victim, which is then left to slowly bleed to death.
There's nothing very cheerful about this for the dolphin. You know, it's just the way Megalodon was. It was a macro predator.
Macro predators are killers that take down prey larger than themselves.
So this is a fossilized whale vertebra that was found along Calvert Cliffs. When we rotate this vertebra 180 degrees, you'll notice that this end is very different than the back end. This is the front end. This is really messed up. So what happened is, at some point in the life of this whale, it experienced a major traumatic event that forcefully broke the whole bottom half of the vertebra away from the rest of the centrum.
The injuries on this whalebone are catastrophic. Stephen suspects that this is no accidental injury.
There are several explanations for how that could have happened, but I think the best and most reasonable one is that this whale, at some point in its life, had an encounter with Megalodon. So I can imagine Megalodon coming up from below, ambushing this whale.
Incredibly, this whale's killer may have left behind a smoking gun.
What's also interesting about this vertebra is that immediately adjacent to it, in the sediment, was this single Megalodon tooth was found. It was a spall fracture, which indicates that at some point in this tooth's existence, it struck a hard object like a bone of a whale, and the force of the bite was so powerful that it overcame the strength of the tip of the tooth and it broke it off. So again, this is circumstantial evidence. We can't know for sure if they're related to this trauma, but they were found together.
The fossil evidence hints at the massive size of prey that Megalodon was capable of taking on. Catalina Pimiento's 3D model also sheds light on the kind of prey Megalodon was eating.
Body mass also allows us to infer prey intake capabilities in two ways. First, we were able to estimate the stomach volume, and based on this volume, we were able to estimate how big of a prey the Megalodon could have fully consumed. Our 16-meter-long Megalodon model was capable of consuming prey as large as 8 meters and in as few as 5 bites.
Megalodon wasn't designed to snack on small fry.
We were able to estimate the energetic demands, the caloric intake required for this individual Megalodon to survive. The calculation suggests that a Megalodon needed 98,000 kilocalories per day.
Only one beast could provide enough energy for a hungry Megalodon. This monster shark was a whale killer. And the bigger Megalodon became, the more food it needed to sustain it. Hunting and killing calorific prey like a blubber-rich whale wasn't a choice, it was a necessity. With a bite 10 times more powerful than a great white, Megalodon was perfectly evolved for tackling large prey. As it went in for the kill, its jaws could shoot forwards and open to a vast size before sinking its teeth into its victim. And when shaking its head side to side, its teeth could saw into flesh, ripping off huge chunks of meat. With jaws like this, Megalodon was the ultimate ocean mega-predator. Was any marine creature safe from Megalodon? Incredibly, fossil evidence reveals that this shark wasn't even safe from its own kind. Stephen has discovered a Megalodon tooth fossil that has some tantalizing evidence scratched into the surface. But the detail is very fine, and he needs to treat the fossil to reveal what he believes to be an extraordinary encounter.
I'm going to whiten the fossil, and I'm going to do that by heating up this solid ammonium chloride with this burner.
The heated solid ammonium chloride turns into a powdery gas, which Stephen uses to temporarily coat the fossil.
You want to extract as much detail and information from the fossil as possible, and this is just one technique that we can apply to do that. Makes the detail on the surface of the tooth really pop, so we can see exactly what has happened to this tooth.
Will the technique reveal enough detail for him to read and interpret the evidence?
We can clearly see that the surface, the tongue side, the inside surface of this megalodon tooth was scored when another megalodon tooth raked the surface. So what's amazing is that you have all these serrations where one megalodon tooth struck another megalodon tooth, and in a way, megalodon left its calling card, right, the serration marks, on another megalodon tooth. So you can just imagine, right, two giant megalodons kind of duking it out, having at each other like face to face. I mean, that's just like apex predator against the most apex predator. That would have been spectacular.
Megalodon was a fearsome predator, a transoceanic monster that hunted down and dispatched whale-sized prey and even other rival megalodons in a few powerful bites. It was at the top of its game for millions of years. Why is it no longer terrorizing the oceans today? The fossil record shows that between 2 and 3 million years ago, Megalodon disappeared. Unlike the dinosaurs, which were wiped out 66 million years ago, mighty Megalodon's disappearance wasn't linked to a sudden catastrophic event. Its extinction happened slowly over time. So what wiped out this monster-sized super predator?
Where did it go? Like, why did it become extinct? To me, that's really amazing that an animal that is like the top marine predator for arguably like 20 million years, the biggest, the baddest, the best, all of a sudden goes extinct.
A clue could lie with the rise of a shark we still fear today, the great white. Based on tooth fossils found around the world, Megalodon ruled the seas for over 13 million years and spread to nearly every ocean on the planet, competing with its smaller relative, the great white shark. But then, 2.6 million years ago, Megalodon disappeared from the fossil record, while the great white shark survives to this day. Why did the smaller fish win the evolutionary battle? Had Megalodon bitten off more than it could chew? Species extinctions that happen over time are due to a series of events. Could this have been the case for Megalodon? Stephen Godfrey believes that climate change might have been a factor. He hunts for clues hidden in the Calvert Cliffs.
When you look at this expanse of sedimentary rock, it all looks like it's pretty uniform, but in fact it isn't. Geologists have studied the composition of these sediments, and what they've learned is that there are different particle sizes and different combinations of sand, silt, and clay, which indicate that there are different water depths here responsible for the deposition of these different kinds of sediment.
The different layers reveal how changes in global temperature had a direct impact on sea levels. Shark nurseries are often found in shallow coastal areas. One theory suggests that falling sea levels radically altered the nursery habitats that Megalodon might have relied on to provide a safe haven for its pups.
If Megalodon did require a nursery area to birth its pups to survive, it would have had less options. And so it has been suggested that that was one of the reasons why Megalodon became extinct, because it just didn't have access to these shallow water environments where its pups could be protected.
But there's still a mystery. Shark species that lived at the same time as Megalodon and are still around today also use nurseries. Why were they able to survive this loss of habitat? Professor Joy Rodenberg believes climate change delivered a deadly double blow to Megalodon. It devastated both the habitat and sources of food that Megalodon had evolved to rely on.
Megalodon's big size was probably also its downfall. A big predator needs to prey on big prey. But if that prey species starts to dwindle in numbers, that leaves it less resource to feed off of. Or if there was some environmental change that moved that prey out of the area where Megalodon was, then it would also have less prey to feed on.
The Ice Age had a devastating impact on marine ecosystems. One estimate suggests that more than a third of all large marine creatures went extinct at that time, including a high percentage of the whale species, the large high-calorie prey that Megalodon had come to rely on to sustain its enormous body size. Had Megalodon become too specialized? A clue to support this theory is embedded in the tooth fossil evidence for both Megalodon and great white sharks.
Shark diets are revealed in their teeth. You can see chemicals in the teeth, and they reflect what the animal was eating.
Teeth of plant eaters low in the food chain contain a lot of zinc. Teeth of top predators, very little. This telltale clue in the tooth fossils is a vital piece of evidence for investigators trying to understand the lifestyle of a prehistoric animal.
Great white sharks and Megalodon both had low values of zinc. But as you look through the fossil record, what you start to see is Megalodon starts to get higher levels of zinc compared to great whites.
This change in zinc values in more recent Megalodon tooth fossils suggests it was eating smaller prey lower down the food chain, while at the same time, it was business as usual for Megalodon's neighbor, the great white.
Which one of these was more specialized and which one of these was more adaptable to change? Megalodon could really only eat very big prey to maintain its body size. Great whites could eat big prey and smaller prey. So they had a lot more variety that they could choose from. They were therefore more of a generalist and more adaptable to changes in the environment. And that's probably why they survive today and Megalodon doesn't.
Rivalry between great whites and Megalodon might have been the final blow for this monster predator. And when Megalodon disappeared 2 to 3 million years ago, the great white moved into pole position. It remains one of the world's most feared predators today.
The extinction of Megalodon boils down to 3 general areas: climate change, extinction of the prey on which it was feeding, and the evolution of competitors. It may not have been any one of these. It could have been a combination of any one of those, but we really don't know yet. In a way, that makes the study of Megalodon all that much more interesting. It's this fascinating mystery.
The mystery to exactly why Megalodon disappeared keeps imaginations alive. Some wonder, could this prehistoric fish still be swimming in the unknown depths of our oceans? It's a question that scientists like Stephen Godfrey get asked all the time.
I think people have a hard time letting Megalodon go because it was such an amazing predator that was so superbly well adapted and was so successful for so many millions of years. I mean, it was the top dog. We can't imagine, like, well, how is it possible for an animal that's at the apex of the food web to become extinct.
The ocean covers more than 70% of the Earth's surface. Yet more than 80% of this vast marine habitat has never been explored, mapped, or even seen. The deepest place on Earth plunges almost 11 kilometers below the ocean surface.
It's actually quite believable for some people that these animals are still alive. Why? Because we don't know what's in the ocean. We haven't seen everything in the ocean. It's one of these unexplored areas, the last frontier.
Megalodon swam in the oceans for millions of years. It lived all over the world and was capable of traveling huge distances across warm and cold oceans. It could even descend to frigid ocean depths, fueling speculation that it really could still be out there.
Everyone wants to see the biggest shark that's out there. And if you think Jaws is big and then you hear about something that's got teeth that are this size, well, of course that's got to be more exciting, right?
A unique sighting came in 2021 when a group of sea passengers encountered a monstrous shark in the Atlantic Ocean.
Holy.
This footage shows a huge fish, but scientists confirmed it to be a harmless basking shark.
I do not think Megalodon is still out there today. There's absolutely zero evidence that this shark is still alive. There are no modern teeth washing up, only fossil teeth have been found.
The fossil record shows that Megalodon was widely distributed around the world for nearly 20 million years. But around 2 million years ago, the fossil trail ends. Experts are confident that Megalodon is no more.
We know it was very, very large, so the chances of us not being able to see it are very, very low. Even if they were living in a very remote place, they would have need important size in this population to find mates and reproduce and sustain the population.
How do we know that Megalodon is in fact extinct? If the Megalodon that we know of from the fossil record, okay, that giant shark that feeds on whales, if it were still alive, we would not be wondering if it was still alive. We would know 100% that it was still alive.
If Megalodon were still alive today, our fishermen would be encountering Megalodon on a regular basis. Megalodon was inhabiting near-shore coastal environments, and these are the same environments that our fishermen are out day in and day out, chumming the waters. There would be definitive sightings of it.
As we continue to do research on Megalodon, we'll get closer, perhaps, to really understanding why this most amazingly well-adapted mackerel predator became extinct. No species is guaranteed to live forever if conditions change. Natural selection cannot take an organism, and if conditions change fast enough or the change is so great that they cannot adapt, then they will become extinct.
Megalodon was a terrifying predator that ruled the oceans for millions of years. The largest shark that has ever lived, with an almighty bite that could take down some of the biggest species on the planet. But it was a victim of its own success, a monster that grew too big, that was unable to successfully adapt to changes around it. Megalodon has disappeared from the depths of our oceans, and with it a planetary titan that deserves to be ranked as one of the most terrifying predators of all time.